is so cool.
Gentlemen, we are stuck here in a city of fraud, and I am pleased to be joined by each of you. I have the brave men of the finest Unfiltered podcast with me today. Of course, everybody knows these guys. They're famous. Sal Greco, John Macari, Eric Dim. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Good to see you all. Sal, how are you?
Brother?
Good. It's been a week of exposés. That's the best way to describe it.
Absolutely. Eric, how you doing?
I'm loving that AI picture. I'm looking at the tattoos, and I'm like, I gotta get that picture. I want a big frame of it. Super cool.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I like to really go all out on these thumbnails because it's sort of, first of all, it's the headline. Second of all, I treat them a little bit like a political cartoon, but I want people to get drawn into the information that we're sharing because it is important. And, you guys were really out front with the Eric Adams scandal. That's been completely brushed under the carpet. Eric Adams is out calling people Negroes, going to parties, he's got his shorties over there where is he, in Ronkonkoma or something? He's got all kinds of stuff. And yeah, he's all over. But so now Tish James, this was outrageous, Sal. You've been having a lot of different lawyers and people who know all about this stuff. Tish James, I saw her in some interview with some guy who now is threatening Sam Antar, where Tish James just came out and said, no, this is all made up. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I know who that is. So Errol Lewis is who had her on, right? And I don't know if he's a fan of hers or not. I don't know if he's close to her, but he clearly was running, basically running cover for her. That's not the truth. If you've watched anything, especially on my show, I've had Sam Antar and Joe Gilbert on. Those documents 100% prove what they're saying. That's the evidence that is actually being used for that referral to the DOJ, the criminal referral. So I don't know what he's talking about. She's backtracking and stuff, but let's be honest here, Jason. The way this actually started, and I saw, someone else we know that's out there running out on X saying, it's me. I sent this to Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This started why? Because there's a picture of her with Jimmy Rodriguez, the self-admitted criminal mob associate that used to be the manager of Con Sofrito, which is the Hall of Felons. And this is the guy that actually threatened John Macari, who's right here with us. She was there at Con Sofrito, and that is where it all starts. It all actually started with the three of us. From there, it has snowballed into what you see with documents. Nobody cared about this woman until we all said, wait a minute. She's hanging out at this place with the NYPD, and we have our own sources, and bam. Then you found out everything about the nightclub, about her, about this gentleman that she's pictured with the Cabans, with Eric Adams. And now you have all what we have here. But, John could talk a lot about this because this guy threatened him, and she's hanging out with him. And I think that's an even bigger issue because what we found out later, Jason, was there was a report of human trafficking there. So how does that look when there's human trafficking and the report disappears because Eric Adams then becomes mayor? The former partner of this place did get indicted and charged and pled guilty to human trafficking. And then that report, which we don't know what happened, that came from the NYPD. These are honest cops doing their job. There's the head law enforcement agent of the state standing there with this guy and in this place that's got all this mishigas. Someone explain this to me. And then he threatened John, by the way.
Well, what was that about? I missed that. So before we get to him threatening John, maybe there's some people who don't remember or know who Jimmy Rodriguez is. Sal, tell us, if you will, the significance of Letitia James. First of all, she looks like she's about to make out with this guy. They're going to the prom or something. What is the significance of this relationship right here?
So here's the thing. Jimmy is a nefarious character. He used to be a restaurateur. I don't know if he has numerous restaurants that are open and close. The problem is the once owner of the place called Jimmy's Bronx Cafe. Okay. That place was infamous. Shootings, stabbings, 15 people got locked up out of there in an FBI sting. He himself has been involved and his place is getting raided. He also has connections to people like Fidel Castro, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, who announced her campaign for the Senate in front of his laundromat where his partner got indicted. We showed that. So, and this article is the one that explains the business partner got picked up by the feds for human trafficking. And he's also very close with Eddie Caban, the former police commissioner, the brother, Richie, who technically on paper owned Con Sofrito, and numerous police executives. They're always hanging. The whole Crumbs crew that me and Eric and John talk about, all hanging out with this guy. So when we started to expose how this restaurant, which we don't even know how it remained open, okay? When we start exposing all of this and talking about Tish James and Eric Adams, and all of a sudden that guy right there starts sending messages to John, who's on the screen here, okay? And he starts to threaten him. And
what was
it
he
was never
saying?
any, and it was never, no one ever know. So the NYPD, we don't know what they did with this. Obviously,
Nothing.
John had to do something. But John got to explain it better because this guy is the link between all these people. Oh, and by the way, he's friends with P. Diddy and all those guys. He used to hang out with them all the time.
One quick thing before we go to John, and forgive me, gentlemen, I should have wished everybody a good Friday and a happy Passover. If I'm not mistaken, Eric, you've told us in the past that, like me, you're Jewish, right?
Yep.
See, some of us are tough. Some of us are tough. Don't mess with this one, people. I'm a tiny guy. Sal has seen it. I can take a lot of crap, but happy Passover, Eric, and Good Friday to everyone watching and to you guys. We're going to have a little bit of a short show, so I want to get to John and explaining what is it that Jimmy Rodriguez did and what happened.
So, I think the whole thing's still a mystery. Obviously, we've been on the forefront of reporting corruption that's been coming out of the upper echelon of the NYPD and all of the political connections that Eric Adams and the people that he put in high-powered positions. So we were at the forefront of that when we started receiving death threats and threats against our children from active members of the service, active members of the NYPD. And then this guy just pops up out of nowhere and starts sending me messages with Fat Joe and music of vengeance. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know you. Like, why are you even talking about me? Why is my name coming out of your mouth? Like, what's happening here? Never got clarified. And then it comes out that, hey, police commissioner is very good friends with him. The NYPD is all hanging out at his restaurant, and detectives that are hanging out at his restaurant are threatening me and Eric. There was a whole tie-in to Eric Adams doesn't like critics. The upper echelon, his politically appointed police managers, because they're not leaders, they're corrupted and they don't like people talking about them, and they're not used to retired guys who have an intricate knowledge of all of them and understand how policing works and legislation works, actually looking into what they're doing and why, and telling people why what they're doing is not correct and why it violates not only law, but conflicts of interest and all this other things. So I guess it was more of a bully tactic to try to silence the Finest Unfiltered, which started out as New York's Finest Retired and Unfiltered podcast, and we still helm that today, me and Eric. But now it's related into more of a media network where we have shows like the Sal Greco, shows like the Executive Perspective. And I think they were trying to bully and intimidate our platform into going away.
Yeah, I
By
think
committing felonies.
Exactly, but
felonies, by the way.
I think they see
that someone online. You can't do that through the states.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Wire fraud.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wire fraud, threatening over state lines on internet with pictures of children and stuff. That's actually a felony. But hey, he's a self-admitted criminal and a mob associate. So what do you expect?
Right. He doesn't seem to mind. But you know what, though, Sal? I think there are some people. I mean, you guys know much more about this than I would, but I think there are some people. I met one guy who told me that he had been in jail. He was like my age, and he said he had been in jail for like 20 years. I was like, what? But this guy was super Jesused up and had seemed to have been reformed. He wasn't around threatening people. It's amazing to me that these guys have had all these kind of legal problems, but yet they don't care at all. They are not deterred from doing these. It's a special kind of person that does these kind of really serious felonies with no fear whatsoever of repercussions. And I think it probably has something to do with the fact that the dude is playing Huggy Bear with Tish James.
Well,
he's got some, he's got some high profile connections. I mean, we see it play out at Con Sofrito. Sal has had his finger on this for a long period of time. And what's interesting about this, I don't believe in coincidence. So there's 79 precincts in the NYPD. In addition to that, you have 12 transit precincts and housing districts. And sure enough, at the height of the attacks that John and I received on social media from the inner linings of the NYPD, different units, which we believe, and we've shown credible evidence, stems from the upper echelon of the police department. And with that being said, there was actually a sergeant who was employed by the NYPD who used a fake moniker to threaten myself and John. And with that being said, there was a 4-5 detective, and this particular detective actually reached out and contacted myself and John and threatened us on social media as well. And the coincidence is this detective actually works in the detective squad that encompasses Con Sofrito's. I don't think that there's a coincidence. I believe there's a relation there. What are the chances that this one detective happens to work in the same precinct as Con Sofrito's, and John and myself and Sal, we're all linked together. So I believe there's definitely a connection there.
I think you're right. Now, wait, let me ask you a question, though, because I like it when you guys use these police terms, but I'm like, whoa, 4-5 detective. That sounds heavy. What does that mean?
So what that means is that's actually the assignment of the precinct. So it's the 45th precinct, which is in the Throgs Neck section of the Bronx, whereas Con Sofrito's in the Throgs Neck section of the Bronx. And this particular detective reached out to John and myself about this fake moniker that we had indicated, and we notified openly, publicly, that we made allegations, and we notified internal affairs. In that investigation, we have been completely stonewalled. Even as far as yesterday, I sent an email to the Internal Affairs Bureau because they have the information on the sergeant behind this fake moniker that attacked myself and John, and even went as far as to threaten our children while employed by the NYPD. He's no longer, he resigned from the NYPD, and the NYPD will not file criminal charges. No surprise. I know the experiences you've had, Jason, with the NYPD.
Yeah.
John and I were actually directed to file in our local precincts in Florida, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
We were harassed by this fake moniker while this sergeant was employed by the NYPD, known to the department, and we'd been completely stonewalled.
That's amazing, Eric. I mean, it's not amazing. We've seen it happen. People who saw me go over to Walcott Hotel, the detectives were laughing at me in a situation where there's gang members right there engaged in kidnapping or something who could have easily killed me. It's very troubling to know. First of all, what you just described is sick if anybody did it, but you're saying someone, not just like that schmuck, Justin McLaurin, who pushed me out of Midtown South. This is a detective who's calling you and threatening your kids. How can someone who's living in that same brain enforce the law and protect the public?
Well, they can't. That's why, John and I were very tolerable of attacks we received on social media. Obviously, information about us was actually obtained by the NYPD intranet, which is another thing that is another problem. But we were tolerable. We weren't going to make an internal affairs complaint. But once that this particular sergeant started to make just make some heinous claims against our children, we decided that this person was completely unhinged and shouldn't be working in New York City and shouldn't be employed with a firearm. So now, at that point, we made it.
I just remembered something that maybe people don't know. You have a very ill son, and this guy's calling up, and Eric, what is this? How can the guy do that? And so they won't do anything. The police won't do anything.
No, we've been completely stonewalled. The Internal Affairs Bureau actually has so much turnover in this particular case, and because it lacks integrity, it's completely compromised. As John and I had both indicated to Internal Affairs that we want to make sure that anyone that potentially participated or was an attendee at Con Sofrito's, would be recused from this case. And sure enough, thank you to Sal Greco, Sal exposed a picture on X that shows the former chief, Miguel Iglesias, who was the commanding officer to Internal Affairs Bureau, pictured at Con Sofrito's. So numerous investigators have been removed from our case. Until this point, this case is now almost 18 months old. We've been completely stonewalled and not provided any information.
It shows you what's going on there with this. And Jason, like, no matter how you spin this, and now that place is no longer in operation, thank God, but everything stems from that place. It seems to be like a Raven nightclub where they do anything to protect the people that either run it or the place itself. And they would use mob-like tactics like this to enforce that, no, you're not going to take this place down, or who are you to challenge us? Because everything that went on there and the people went on there, look at the laundry list of people that are now encapsulated in the scandals, right? Because all of the Caban brothers, Eric Adams, or what's his Pearson, Banks, Tish James, the attorney, district attorney in the Bronx. They were all there, and they're all encapsulated in this corruption that went on there. And these are the tactics that they would use to try to say, you're not going to come after us, you're not going to expose us. And that's how really this really grew, because they used to send people into the chats and say, oh, you guys are a small podcast. If everyone's so small, why the hell is Jimmy Rodriguez trying to threaten people online when committing felonies? That shows you that we were just because we were willing to tell the truth. Look at the links that these people would go to try to silence you.
Well, the craziest part to me is that listen, I have contacted Internal Affairs Bureau because people think like, oh, well, this will do it. Cop is messing with me. I'll get to Internal Affairs. Here now you guys are telling us that this guy Iglesias, he's the head of it. And sure enough, Jessica Tish dismissed him December 21st. So, I mean, how could Internal Affairs have been effectively investigating anything if the guy who's in charge of it is right there in the den of, the hub of where they're doing all this crime? John, isn't this, I mean, you've told me stories. You got something that happened with Internal Affairs, right? That you were trying to, what is going on with all this Internal Affairs stuff?
So we reported this to Internal Affairs, and when we reported it, we asked, one of the disclaimers is we asked that Internal Affairs do an audit and ensure that none of the people that we make allegations on touch our case. And part of our allegation was against the chief of Internal Affairs, Miguel Iglesias. So we didn't want him to have access to it, and to inform us if there was a way for them to properly investigate this without tainting the investigation against subjects of the case. Obviously, they came back and said that nobody's ever been to Con Sofrito's. Nobody will see the case. This will be under lockdown status. Only members of Group 1 Internal Affairs which is the highest special investigative unit in NYPD's Internal Affairs Bureau, will touch the case or see the case. And then Sal has puts out online that, in fact, Miguel Iglesias was at Con Sofrito's hanging out with people that were threatening us. And so everything we were told was a lie. After Jessica Tish had relieved Miguel Iglesias from duty, there he goes right there. At Con Sofrito, is a place that his own staff said he's never attended.
Wow.
And come to find out later, numerous people in that same investigative group were actually in attendance at that party as well. Wow. We don't have photo evidence of it, but we do know that it happened. And so after that, all of the members of Group 1 were also transferred out of Group 1 Internal Affairs. Our case was getting bounced around. So Jessica Tish bounces all of them out of Group 1. And then we come to find out that one of the lieutenants who touched our case, who was bounced out of Group 1 and transferred, is back into Internal Affairs and now in an investigative unit that deals directly with the feds. So, I mean, to sit there and say, like, there's corruption being cleaned up in the NYPD, I want to say, like, corruption's just more being moved around. It's a shell game. And there's a couple of guys that took a fall. But the rest of the players that we complained about are still in power and have since either been promoted or have moved on to even bigger, better things, such as being the deputy mayor of public safety and things like that. So,
unbelievable. So, I know that John, you and Eric have only a little bit of time with us today, and this is just absolutely crazy. So, talk to us a little bit about this connection to Letitia James, and what do you anticipate will happen now that Sam Antar and Joel Gilbert, the expose those guys have been doing, is really starting to get some traction? Are we going to crack through this? Is anything going to happen?
So I just want to give a big shout out to Sam Antar, right? Because Sam Antar has done great work. He labeled this out. We were actually helping him retweet to get it out there for a few months now. This isn't something that's new. It's new to everybody in America, but this is something that if you're tuned into the politics in New York City, you watch the finest Unfiltered, you knew what Sam was doing, and so he's done a great job. I think, honestly, the evidence at this point is irrefutable about what Letitia James was doing. But the same way, the evidence that we laid out against Eric Adams and his corrupt political appointees in the New York City Police Department were irrefutable. So, I hope that America sees justice. I hope that we see a politician held accountable for committing crimes. And I had just asked Letitia James a question today, because she's denying all of these allegations, saying that they're baseless, when it's her signature. They're documents that actually, if anyone knows the crime and you look at it, you read the crime, you look at the documents, there it is. It smacks you in the face. You don't have to be you don't have to be a member of law enforcement to see it. You don't have to be a lawyer to see it. And she's saying they're baseless. And the same thing has Eric Adams. He's innocent. He's innocent. He's innocent. And I'll be honest, at this point, I have no faith in the Department of Justice or in the justice system. What happened with Eric Adams was a slap in the face to not only New Yorkers, but to the American people and to our criminal justice system. And, should Letitia James be held accountable for her crimes? Absolutely. I asked her the question. I said, if this was one of your constituents who was accused of the same charges that you're being accused of and the same allegations, what would you do? And we all know what would happen. They would be arrested, their lives would be destroyed, and they would be facing a criminal trial right now. So now I'm going to ask the DOJ, what is going to happen when you have this seated top law enforcement officer in New York State who's accused of committing crimes, more major crimes, that she's went after people for way less? What is going to happen? Answer the American people, answer to the constituents in New York City and New York State. What is going to happen to Letitia James? Because I'm sitting here, I'm telling you right now, I'm not holding my breath. I want to see action before I jump on the bandwagon and say, oh yeah, this is it, she's going down. I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
You know what, Jason, if I could jump in, I just want to say
what
I find the hypocrisy, irony, and just a complete paradox in this is that New York State, if we look at the politics, has completely fought against status quo when it comes to the justice system. And that was the whole point behind bail reform and this different legislation, raise the law, and other legislation has been pro-criminal. To say that in the courtroom, that status and economics should not be a factor in whether you sit in jail. And that really led to the bail reform. And yet the message to our children now is become a politician. And when you become a politician, you have a major stake in the justice system, and your footing could change the game. We see with Eric Adams, we see with Letitia James. The evidence is undeniable at this point. And again, shout out to Sam Antar, because he's doing groundbreaking work at this point. And again, what John said is absolutely right. The appearance of impropriety in New York State government has been there, just as we see in some other democratic cities and democratic states. But it's, again, every eye is on New York City, eye on New York State. And we can be completely critical at this point. But the message here is in New York State government, you could walk on water. And it's the rules for thee and rules for me. That's exactly what we see in New York State.
Yeah, and you guys raised an important point. I forget who, I think John said it, that corruption hasn't ended. It's just been moved around. And you know what? Even in our conversation here, I'm seeing a lot of evidence that. So this thing, the Brennan Center for Justice, if I'm not mistaken, this is something within NYU. Do you guys know what this is? Brennan Center for Justice? I'm pretty sure.
I heard of it, but I'm not 100% sure on where it falls out of. I'd have to look back into it.
Brennan Center. I think Brennan Center. Let's just check real quick. Brennan Center for Justice. Yes, yeah. It's part of NYU. And so, you see, the thing that's interesting about this is that there is a guy involved in this. Brennan Center named Michael German. There he is. This is an interesting guy. Mike German, he's a former FBI agent who, according to things in the public domain, got all jammed up by my favorite FBI. I will refrain from using the word I used to describe her because this is a family program. But this guy had a whole tirade against Valerie Caproni. And when I first learned about him, to refresh the audience, Valerie Caproni is the former FBI general counsel who I became acquainted with when I started getting sued more than 24 times by the same lunatic 8 years ago. And she got the first case. And she got the second case from a different person, unrelated to this lunatic, it seemed. But anyway, when I learned that this guy Michael got all jammed up by her, I was like, hey, this is perfect. Former FBI agent, like you guys know about the cops, this guy will know about the FBI, and he knows all about Caproni. When I contacted the Brennan Center to try to speak to this guy, it'd be like trying to call Putin or something. I just couldn't get to him, there's something weird going on with this guy and the Brennan Center. And by something weird, I mean, usually when these criminal scumbags create something called the whatever Center for Justice, that thing is focused on violating every right and making sure that there is no justice. So I'm not sure what that Brennan Center is all about, but it just came up when Eric mentioned the bail reform. And so they're putting out articles that, I don't know, facts about bail reform. So I don't know anything about the law. If I go to look at this, all these fancy lawyers from the Brennan Center for Justice are telling me what I should think about the bail reform. I get the sense just from 5 seconds of talking to Eric about it that he has a better insight into what this thing is all about from being a cop and seeing how bail reform has actually affected the city, right, Eric?
Oh, absolutely. It's been a pro-criminal society in New York City and New York State with bail reform. I mean, we see it right now, a revolving door. And that's why we have to have our finger on the pulse at this point. And we have to look and make sure that we don't have short-term memories. Because right now, Cuomo is leading the race right now for New York City. He could potentially be the next mayor. And we can't forget that he's the one that created this legislation behind bail reform. He's the one that initiated, raised the age, which now treats 16 and 17-year-olds as juveniles rather than adults in the court system, which is a major problem in New York City, especially around gangs, which is a major facilitated crimes in New York City. And at the same token, we have a New York City Council that's completely pro-criminal, trying to remove a gang database. And Cuomo also created the repeal on 58, which was a great shield to protect police officers from public scrutiny when it came to the disciplinary records. Everyone gets a second chance. We have a clean slate except police officers. So please don't forget, let's not have short-term memories. Cuomo should not be your next mayor.
No, definitely not. And that actually ties into what I was, forgot to finish my point, but they've outsourced this stuff, the corruption, to a federal level. And it seems to me that Eric Adams and Letitia James have gotten on that train because this Brennan Center for Justice created at NYU, I see a lot of DOJ and sort of federal type activity at NYU. Andrew Weissmann is a professor there, and it's the perfect breeding ground for selecting your up and coming lawyers from one of the best known universities in the nation to see, let's see, who in here is susceptible to the suggestion of, well, you can just file this thing against this guy or not file this thing against this guy. These people can push things one way or the other and change the outcome of somebody's life. I know we only have a little bit of time left with Eric and John. So if you guys have some closing remarks that you'd like to share with anybody or anything we haven't discussed yet, please, Eric.
Yeah, I'm if you don't mind, I'm going to go first because I'm going to jump
Sure,
out.
yeah,
Yeah,
no problem.
But I just want to say, that's where we're at. Sam Antar right now, Letitia James and the Democrats are trying to paint Sam Antar as he's some right-wing Trump administration. These allegations are coming from the Trump administration. These allegations are coming from a New York lifelong Democrat. These allegations are coming from a man who saw fraud and he called it out, and that's where it's coming from. This is a citizen journalist who's sitting there and holding elected officials' feet to the fire. That's all this is. This is not an attack. This is not a political attack. This is a civilian sitting there and saying, hey, you're corrupt. What is happening here? Answer to this. The accusations aren't baseless. The evidence is there. It's there for everybody. She should be held accountable like the rest of us would. Our politicians are not above us. They work with us. They're civil servants. They're not our kings. They're not our masters. They are bound by the same laws we are. Letitia James should be bound on the same law. Great work to Sam Antar. Check him out. Follow him at Sam Antar on whitecollarfraud.com. Guys, thank you for having me.
Just one quick question before you go, because I know you guys have experienced a lot of mentally ill people as cops. When Letitia James goes into this tirade, starts screaming about how she won't be bullied, does this seem like normal behavior to you, or what are we looking at here, John?
I mean, honestly, you see a lot when people aren't telling the truth, or when people are being called out on lying. What they do is react in anger to you to cover up for the lies. They'll start yelling, screaming to try to cover up. And to me, this is the face of a guilty person. This is the actions of a guilty person. This is somebody who has no argument to be there, because if you did, you would bring up the documents and you would show us and you would cite the law. But she's not doing that. Because if she did that, she'd be showing you the crime.
Exactly. The only possible defense is that somebody forged these documents and is setting her up, and that's obviously not true. Eric, any parting words?
Oh, absolutely. So I want to solidify that by saying that normally what we see when someone reacts to a lie is that they'll become unhinged. And that's what we see from Letitia James. And what do we say? When we don't have the evidence, we act with slander, and we see slander towards Sam Antar. Now, Sam Antar is a self-admitted white-collar criminal himself. He never denies it, and he says that his experience has allowed him to do these investigations. And what's interesting about Sam Antar is he utilizes evidence that the NYPD, anything on the New York State level, actually the legit documents that solidify the criminal activity that's going on stem through this government in New York State. So it's not something that he just made up on his own. It's legitimate documents that Sam Antar does. It's evidence-based. I'm very impressed with what Sam Antar is doing. He's just a citizen in New York at this point. He's just fed up with the criminal activity that's going on. And Sam Antar is to be trusted at this point because, again, he was a self-admitted criminal himself. And no one does it better than Sam Antar. And this investigation is absolutely legit. And it just shows, I've taken interrogation investigations course in the NYPD where you can identify if someone's lying. And you see it in their action, their response. And when their response is with anger and their response is with slander and it becomes personal, at that point is where we see the lie. So again, we see the paradox in New York City and New York State government where they implement this legislation to protect criminals. In the end, it turns out they're the criminals themselves. Yeah. So, Jason, thank you so much always for having me. Sal, it's always a pleasure. I'm glad you had John too. We appreciate it. I'm glad we have this great relationship and friendship. Happy Passover. Happy Easter, everyone. And you know what? Let's keep their feet to the fire, and let's show our youngsters that, politicians are supposed to serve the public. The public is not supposed to serve them. So thank you so much. Take care.
And Eric, could you just remind us the website where people who want to help Derek can go?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So at this point right now, there is a GoFundMe page. The link is on the website. It's also on my X. It was initiated by Paul Manicone, Just Right PD. So if you go on his page, you can see it. There's also 2 T-shirts that have been flourishing around in support of Derek. So I just want to bring awareness to cancer, especially for our children right now. And I'm also bringing awareness about our insurance companies because what I face right now, and I hope that no one gets into some type of health crisis, because what insurance companies pay in comparison to what these hospitals and doctors bill, it's astronomical, and there's a huge dichotomy, and it just doesn't cover. No matter what insurance plan you have in this country, you are in a storm, and that storm comes quick when you find out how the mounting, and it becomes an avalanche of bills that really it's scary. I was not prepared for that, but again, thank you so much for the overwhelming support that I have received for Derek, and it's really been astronomical between the podcast community, the police community, the Marine Corps, jiu-jitsu. It really helps. You have to have community, and I really appreciate the support, and we're going to keep fighting. We're not giving up.
Good luck with everything, and happy Passover. I hope that Derek gets better.
Thank you so much, guys. Be good. Pleasure.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Eric. Thanks for joining. All right, Sal. So it's just you and me here on out. It's been a
I'll
hell
tell
of
you
a
what,
week.
you mentioned this thing about Tish James speaking like a bully, but maybe that's how they spoke in Con Sofrito. So I mean, that's what you expect. And that's what I think. I mean, hey, that's who she really is. That's what I'm trying to tell people.
I agree.
And still, and I love Samantha. I had him on breaking it down. All that stuff is really bad, and she needs to be indicted. But you know what? I'm a cop, and I'll tell you, human trafficking is the worst crime, probably up there with murder, okay? That crime in itself, that needs to be looked at. She's standing there with him. She's there every night. And by the way, they have her act blue. She's hanging out, doing fundraisers when maybe she shouldn't be. That's what they used to do at Con Sofrito. And she showed up when these things were going on. What was she even doing there? Okay? These are things they really need to. I don't have the hat anymore of a cop. I officially don't wear that because I don't have those powers. But if I was in the DOJ, if I was a federal agent, I would look straight at everyone that went to that place. Look at these documents the NYPD has that apparently the documents run cold after the report. What happened? Why? And what is this woman's relationship with that gentleman who's a mob associate and self-admitted criminal? This guy is involved with the Lucchese crime family. What is the attorney general doing with these people? She has the power to prosecute someone, make you a felon, or have crimes on your record, unless this person is an informant, which we don't know because no one's ever been indicted out of that place. What is she doing there?
What do you mean, Jimmy Rodriguez, an informant? But do you go to dinner and hang out drinking with the informants? Is that the way that usually works?
That's the angle here. There's a crowd that says, well, what are you talking about? Informant. What are they informing on? Themselves? What is she doing there? They're literally, there's human trafficking reports out of this place with one guy that actually got picked up for it all the way upstate later on after they sold their half of the place. There's something, Jason, this stinks and it reeks. And I want to know why. No one's made a move on her federally saying, what are you doing in this place? What was going on there?
Wait, hang on a second. When they say human trafficking, what is going on? They have prostitutes there, or they're kidnapping babies, or what is prostitutes?
They're prostitutes, and it's, they're pushing the women around there to different people. I mean, look at the clientele there, Jason.
Yeah.
I mean, this is you can ask people that are not part of this Con Sofrito crumbs crew, and people in the street in New York City would tell you that place, oh man, like right away. How did the people in the street know about it?
Yeah.
But the DOJ not know. Or Tish James. Now, I'll tell you this, Jason, when you're the head of an agency, whether you're the CEO of a company, you're the police commissioner, there is nothing you don't know about. You know why? You're going to have underlings that report back to you or your other subordinates and people that work underneath you to inform you on things. This is something that everyone in the street, which is how how do you think someone like me in Florida found out about it? The people in the street knew about things and they have evidence of things. And this is what's been mounting on top of it. You are the attorney general of the state of New York. You would know about these things. Not only that, she's standing there with him. And she's also been to events with this guy outside of the place. So clearly there's something more than just, I showed up 1 or 2 times. That defense is out the window. So
totally.
This is where you really have this woman. That is where you have this relationship with this guy and that place, which, let's be honest, Jason, there's nothing they ever did. I don't think they did anything right there. They were having parties. Legitimate. They didn't pay their rent. They didn't pay the water bills.
Building decks outside and stuff. But wait a minute, Sal. Wait. Look at this, because this just came yesterday from the Post. Letitia James, in addition to being all pissed off on television, is having some kind of fundraiser for $18,000 per person. Who is paying that? That's a huge amount of money.
Well, if she's still, I wonder where she's going to have it. Because, Jimmy's got a new place. I don't know if she's going to go. I mean, that's the clientele. She's used to this kind of stuff that she does.
This is the maximum.
But the fundraiser, and also that's what they were doing at this place. I'm telling you, this woman, there is so much more than what you see. Sam and Joel have scratched the surface. There's so much deeper stuff. And when you really start pulling the string, when you go to where I've been telling you now for 2 years, if you look at that and you pull that string, you're going to find the true puppeteer behind it. Because the one thing about this woman is she's very close to the real estate racket of New York City. And if you've learned, if you watch The Finest Unfiltered, you watch my show, we have another member, Marlon Bethel, who has produced evidence of this stuff. There's these places that they were extorting. Nightclub extortion racket, which was the twin brother of Eddie Caban, James, the former cop, who is, of course, a Con Sofrito alumni because his brother owns it. And it stems from there. They would go around, and it's not only it's alleged, this guy has evidence of it. They went around these nightclubs and extorted these people. Now, why would they extort people? Well, one of these people in Brooklyn had a place. It's a juice bar. And this juice bar that also later on had a nightclub late at night, like a couple nights a week, had been getting visits constantly by the police department. Now, this guy Jenkins that worked for the mayor's office and was involved in like the nightclub, that stupid nightlife club, not nightlife mayor, nightlife office.
Yeah, the office of nightlife, right.
This guy goes over there and tells them, he calls this guy up and goes, why am I getting harassed constantly by the police here? And he goes, well, I have an idea. I'm gonna have someone speak to you. That someone was James Caban, who's not a member. He's not part of the administration. He's not a cop. And he says, well, you got to give us, give me 500 or whatever it is a week or whatever it is, and all your problems go away. So that stemmed from there. The harassment continued all the way to the point a guy couldn't survive anymore. But what happened is there was 2 vacant lots, right, where this place is. And this little building, if they got it, they could do whatever they want with the property. So the same gentleman, the company that owned the 2 lots next door that were empty, ends up buying the building where this guy's place is, and once he's out of business. So as you could tell, you can kind of see that they could be the muscle for the real estate racket because they control everything. And Tish James is right in the middle of it with these people, and so is Eric Adams. So I don't understand why Eric Adams was let off the hook when you finally had him once and for all. In fact, this trial would have started on Monday. Unfortunately, it's not. And now I don't know anyone's going to be held accountable. It's like John says. But I'm telling you, if you pull this string with Con Sofrito, with Letitia James, you're going to really get to the core of who's the real people that are the puppeteers.
Now, Sal, you were rightly pointing out that they're very dialed into the New York real estate market. And if you think about it, that makes sense. Real estate in New York, it just goes up and up. I mean, it's like gold, basically, right? And it's funny, before we knew about all this mortgage shenanigans and all that, Charles Ortel, who has appeared on my show for the past 8 years and is a fraud expert, investigator, he said that he found it very strange that Eric Adams owned a apartment building in Brooklyn or something like that. I mean, you know, owning apartment buildings, that's investor type work. And I think most people know when you work a job as a cop or in the city council, you know, these can get up to 6-figure salaries, but not the type of income that you're making investments in real estate. Like, where the hell are these people getting this money to buy and maintain this real estate? And I think we're getting some insights into this. People have also been noticing that I have just taken up looking into Andrew Weissmann, speaking of federal people who are involved in real estate. And you know what, Sal? There seems to be a trend here. People doing weird things to acquire real estate that they shouldn't have. And then once you have it, Sal, let me ask you a question. If you owned a 5-unit apartment building and maybe, I don't know, lived in one of them and rented out 4 of them, I don't know, maybe you know how to fix stuff. You could be the super or hire somebody or something. Seems like you could make a lot of money doing that, doesn't it?
Yeah. We also, where are you getting the money on a lifetime career public servant / elected official salary? Where are you getting that money?
Most people I know, including me, are like, oh, thank goodness I'm not in debt at the end of this month. I can pay the bills and have $40 left. So who's buying these apartment buildings for these idiots?
Well, you would say who's giving them the deal? Because
right.
you just said, when I looked at your Andrew Weissmann, and I had it on, I did a whole segment of it on my own show yesterday, and there was an article already written about it, and that little expose you have there on Andrew Weissmann is very telling because it shows we've seen Tish James, right, and you see what she's doing. What this guy's doing might be not only on the same level but far worse. Okay, far worse. What you already have uncovered is the fact that I don't know, this bank went out of business 5 days prior to him getting this loan for this place. He then has his deed, right? It says 2 condos on it, 2 separate dates. And the gentleman that he's getting this from is a career, another shady, slimy guy that's in the background that's never doing anything on the up and up, but is hooked in with the banks.
Epstein. This guy is implicated in the Tower financial scandal with Epstein. I mean, this is the first time we've seen Andrew Weissmann sort of indirectly linked to Epstein, but I don't know that much about this guy. This is the owner of the apartment that gets sold to Weissmann. And I mean, look, Sal, if I told you, hey, I'm moving down to Florida to be closer to my parents and I bought a house, and then 2 years later we find out that house was sold to me by some criminal, and I said to you, Sal, listen, I had no idea. I mean, I'm not here in charge of prosecuting complex fraud for the past 30 years. I wasn't the former FBI general counsel. How the hell does Andrew Weissmann not know that this guy was indicted or, forgive me, he was at least a witness, and it is alleged that he was involved in the money laundering in the Epstein case. Now, what's weird is the only person that went to jail on that, I'm pretty sure, is Hoffenberg. This guy. So he's the one who had the $460 million Ponzi scheme, and Epstein lied. This all came out in this guy's trial. Epstein lied about the source of the money. This dude was Ponzi scheming, and I mean, I don't know. What is he doing? But here's this whole article in Vanity Fair talking also about this Penwalt Corp. Epstein was into all kinds of financial scams. And so at a certain point, it seems like, and remember, he was with the Enron task force. This is not your normal guy. He knows this is one of the nation's biggest experts on financial fraud. So he couldn't look. If I went in there and said, "Oh, Sal, I didn't know. I'm not a mortgage expert," they'd say, "Well, sorry, not knowing isn't the excuse." And this guy is an expert in it.
And he's involved, and he's surrounding himself around shady and slimy people. Kind of like what we see as a constant drumbeat, whether it's Eric Adams, Eddie Caban, Tish James. Now you have Andrew Weissmann. But the fact that you say right here, which is, I saw this, is that 5 days, within the 5-day period, that now he signs this, the bank closes.
It collapses, and it is going into FDIC receivership, which they knew about that more than 5 days before it was happening. Did somebody in the government tell Weissmann? But you know what I discovered last night, Sal? I'm not sure if you've yet had a chance to see part 2 of this expose, but I've discovered the reason for all of this. Allegedly, it would seem. I believe the reason that Mr. Weissmann did this, he's essentially forcing an insolvent bank. He's using an insolvent bank to force a solvent bank to give him an unbelievable rate on an adjustable rate mortgage. He got a rate, he got a rate of 4.9% and 4.95% on the ARM. And the average was 6.5% to 7%. So that's dramatically lower. But when the bank collapsed, JP Morgan assumed the loan, didn't renegotiate the terms, didn't challenge the underwriting, didn't demand any changes, and the 4.95% rate was locked in for 10 years. How much money is that saving on $1 million loan?
That's ridiculous. And clearly reeks of somebody doing a favor for someone else, which with this guy's reputation, you'd say, but wait a minute. I thought he's a prosecutor. He's a straight edge guy. He wouldn't be doing things like that. But Now you have something there. And once again, it's this real estate, mortgages, stuff like that.
Exactly.
And this is where these people get, you know, when you're a self-impressed person, which I see Andrew Weissmann clearly is, because he can't stop smiling in front of a camera. When you're a self-impressed person like this guy and Tish James and Caban and Eric Adams, these are the things that eventually, if you keep doing over and over again, you're gonna fall and you're gonna step in a trap. This makes no sense that this guy who's on MSNBC all day long screaming about Trump and this and that, he's diverting from himself apparently, because now this should be a full-blown investigation the way you're doing with Tish James. What you're telling me, what you're proving already is he's getting something that no one else can get. And I'm sure I'm not a financial guy either, but from what I'm seeing here, that they didn't want to renegotiate or speak and say, look, we're a new bank, you know, we're taking over this loan. And
no, it's Chase, JP Morgan Chase.
That's the biggest bank of, you know, in America. JP Morgan just saying, well, we're just going to take this loan and don't worry about it. There's something there. Somebody knows someone, because normally the average Joe cannot pull that off. And not only that, the fact that that other bank gave him a loan but was going down in 5 days, they clearly knew something was up. It wasn't like, you know, you wake up and in 5 days the bank's out of business. They knew something. Someone had to approve something knowing that they were going out of business. There's no way. 5 days.
Sal.
You're right. 5 days prior, you get, oh, that's it. We're gonna okay this loan, but hey, we won't be here in 24 hours. So.
Right. Okay. Do you want me to? I don't know if I can drop the full bomb right now, but I am working on part 3, and I would like to share something very important that I haven't said yet that maybe nobody knows right here on our show. It's not a coincidence, I don't think. Do you know what else is interesting about First Republic Bank, Sal?
No.
Remember when Michael Cohen testified under oath that he used his own home equity line of credit to pay Stormy Daniels?
Yes. Yeah, I remember that.
I wonder what bank issued that loan. Oh, wow. That's a coincidence, isn't it? Ah.
Yeah, what a coincidence.
Oh, So is First Republic a bank? Or is it an intelligence cutout financing illicit stuff?
It's money laundering.
It's something. It's something. I don't know what it is, but that's pretty interesting stuff. Sal, I have to say something. The work that you and the guys on the Finest Unfiltered podcast have been doing and the people that you're bringing together, like this is my historic understanding of how the NYPD works. Honorable guys like you and John and Eric and people who, this is not a job that you get because, oh, well, maybe I'll go work at Home Depot. You are dedicated to, first of all, risking your life. Second of all, protecting the public. And third of all, if you don't have integrity and you go into this, the stuff those guys were just telling us about detectives threatening sick children.
Yeah, that happened. All that stuff happened. I was there for it. And the only thing I could think of why is the exposés. They didn't want to be exposed because it would lead to what you're seeing now. Clearly, though, if you were just doing your job and doing what's right, you know, it isn't hard to do the right thing, Jason. The easiest thing to do in life is the right thing, right? But it seems for a lot of these people, it's the hardest thing to do is the right thing. And they got intimidated, not only intimidated, but they were afraid that, you know, they don't have control because these people, you live in New York City or you're NYPD and you only have a small area in the entire world where you have some say. We don't know how much of a say, but you have some say and you could push or make things happen. But when you're a guy, you know, you live in Florida and you're no longer there, what are you going to do? You're going to come down to Florida and try to put handcuffs on someone you work in. No. And what do you have? You can't frame people. Nobody cares. So these people who now lost control or losing power, their reaction is what you saw. with them lashing out, threatening people. What they know, you know better. It's a felony to threaten people over the internet, over state lines. Actually, look that up. It's a federal offense. But nobody would stop them. They're only used to that attitude. Oh, I'm going to see you, whatever he said to John. Face to face, he's probably like that. Over state lines and no ability to see each other. What are you now, internet tough guy? And then you're going to send these NYPD goons, detectives. You swore an oath to uphold the law. You wear a badge, and then you act like the same people
It's
you go
so
out
bad.
and try to arrest. You know, that's
so
the
bad.
problem.
This
is the problem I see.
So
and
bad.
It's very corrupt up top. I don't care what they're telling you right now about Jessica Tish. I unveiled on my show yesterday that there's a new rumor, and I've been told from a little birdie that it's Jessica Tish that's being looked at right now for accepting bribes, and that there's someone in the background that is singing about it. So somebody
But I
knows
thought
something.
she's rich. I thought she's some kind of billionaire heiress or something. What the hell does she need bribes for?
The way it's been described is that I guess maybe Daddy cut her off for her own
Oh,
allowance.
whoa.
I don't know. Maybe they're getting enough. But, you know, that would show you that, one, you know, power could get to anyone. Two, I don't know anyone Eric Adams has ever appointed that, you know, isn't shady, slimy, seedy. So why would she be any different? The police commissioner, the only one that had any sort of integrity was Keyshawn Sewell. But as we know, we will get an answer soon in my own case. She was hanging around Jimmy Rodriguez, so she'll have to answer for that herself. So I don't know what's going on with Eric Adams other than everyone he appoints seems to have a problem. So, again, that was another revelation you heard. And if anyone out there does, you should be watching not only the Sal Greco show on X, streaming live Tuesdays and Thursdays at 105, or on the Finest Unfiltered YouTube channel, which is on network, also streaming at 105 live on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You'll be hearing about things like this. I like to have exposés. I have lawyers on. I have politicians on. I have retired police officers. I had a deputy commissioner retired yesterday on, Bill Chapman, great guy. Should be the future police commissioner if you had a real mayor there. I also have, I talk about sports. I talk about everything. And you get a little bit of everything with me. But in the end, the reason I do these exposés and the guys do it is we care about honest, hardworking people. And there's honest, hardworking cops. And the taxpayer deserves that. They taxpayer, you shouldn't be sleeping well at night, Jason, knowing you got a corrupt crew of cops, some that being a majority executives, hanging out with mob associates, where there's human trafficking reports and drug allegations. You don't want to. You should be very alarmed that whole time there was all this stuff going on. And if we're just going to sit here and go, well, we got rid of Miguel Iglesias, what is that going to do? There's so many more layers. You know, you want accountability, Jason. You don't want, oh, well, we fired this guy, so let's forget about everything else. No, those are no scapegoats. Come on.
Well, it's a knee-jerk reaction, right? They just want to seem like they're doing something when they actually aren't. But Sal, you've had some great guests. I apologize. I've been up until like 2:00 in the morning every day working on this Andrew Weissmann thing. So I've missed the last couple shows, but I have seen the guests and I've been meaning to check back in. So people should definitely get over to the Finest Unfiltered on YouTube, also to Sal on X. He's doing tons of great reporting. It's a wonderful thing for people to follow Sal. And don't forget to visit salgreco.com. Easter is the perfect time for you to tap on that support tab. And if you enjoy Sal's reporting, support Sal. He's got legal cases. He's, fighting against this city of fraud, even though he is remote there in Florida. Beautiful Fort Lauderdale. Bad cell phone reception. That's fine. And Sal, I want to wish you a happy Easter, a good weekend. Thank you for coming on today. I always love the shows we do. We really are digging into something very important here. And I share the skepticism that everybody has expressed. We can't have been through all this. We didn't even get to talk about Dale Ho and his violation of my rights. I was able to actually get some traction with our buddy Boasberg, but the Eric Adams ship has sailed.
I saw that. But look, good. You are doing something. I like I said on the show, people like to say, "Oh, Jason is conspiracy theorist." And I go, when you kind of look at things, everything kind of starts with what you want to call a conspiracy theory or a theory, kind of like what I said with Tish James. Only that I have had a lot of evidence, just like you, that what I'm saying would lead to what I ultimately saying that Tish James is somehow involved in something nefarious that went on at Con Sofrito. And as the head law enforcement agent of the state, that's a problem. And you should scream for accountability. Because remember, this woman could take your rights away and your freedom, but she has no problem hanging out with people that commit crime. So that should really say all you need to know. And with you, and I said you had this whole expose and another guy who had the power to do that, and that's Andrew Weissmann. And I'm saying here, I think you're on the exact same investigative track that Sam Antar was when he started to look into Tish James. So this might take you more than a couple of nights. It might take a while to get there, but you will hit pay dirt with this. I'm pretty sure you're going to find that what you need here to say, I know that this for sure happened, that for sure happened, that for sure happened. And it started with what? A theory. Hey, I think he did this because once you have that one document, it leads to everything else. So
exactly.
So I tell people, because a lot of people say, and I love the stuff you do, man on the street.
Thank you.
Yeah, listen, sometimes things you say might sound crazy, but at the same time, you're making a point that, that doesn't look right. And you're just questioning things, which is what this country was kind of built on. Freedom of expression,
right.
It's First Amendment. You're not doing anything illegal, but you are pointing a spotlight on things that go, I don't know about that. Those Tesla protests, that's not organic. Let's be honest. You shine the light on it, and even got Alex Jones to go do the same thing where craziness was going on at that dealership. So it's like it's an eclectic group of people that get together at a car dealership that they don't even own the cars there or bought a car there, but they do all this stuff, and you put that out there. So I always appreciate your work. I like what I see, and I think people should go and watch you, go to your page, and support you and help you, especially if they like what they see, because I think you're on to something. I don't care what people say. Your work is valuable. So, and I'd say keep going with that Andrew Weissmann thing. Is just going to be a lot more there than you even see right now.
I think you're right, and thank you for those kind words, Sal. Have an excellent Good Friday, a happy Easter to everyone. Don't forget, you can sponsor Crowdsource the Truth by going to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Odyssey is just upgrading their payment system right now, so unfortunately, you can still subscribe for free, and if you are already sponsoring on Odyssey, you're going to continue to have free access to sponsor-exclusive content until that whole thing gets straightened out. Thanks to everybody who is also supporting the show by subscribing to me on X at JG_CSTT. Thanks very much to you, Sal. I am on my way now to go complete some more research into Andrew Weissmann. Have a great weekend, everybody. I'll see you soon.
Happy Easter, everyone.
Happy Easter.